Because today is the feast of the parents of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saints Joachim and Saint Anne, we have special readings. And notice how in today's Gospel reading, our Lord, speaking to his disciples, says, "Blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear." And then he goes on to say how many in the past, the prophets and the righteous people long to see what you see and to hear what you hear. In other words, to see the Messiah and to listen to the words of the Messiah. This was the great longing of the Jewish people, and in many ways it is still a longing of the Jewish people because they have rejected Christ as the Messiah, so they're waiting for this other Messiah that, well, some say it's going to be the Antichrist. So, but of course, people will not know that right away. So they had this great longing, which is good. And there were many women who actually hoped that they would be the mother of the Messiah, or if not the mother, then that maybe one of their descendants would be the mother. So this is something that was very prevalent in the minds of many, many Jewish people, or the majority of Jewish people. And we could say for ourselves that truly it would have been blessed, a great honor, to be able to see our Lord, to actually hear him speak. So the people before the time of our Lord, they were hoping to see him. And the people after the time of our Lord, which includes all of us, we kind of wish we would have been there and able to see our Lord, to experience him, to witness his miracles. But you see, seeing and hearing isn't always enough. There were many people that saw our Lord and did hear him, but ended up rejecting him. So there's no guarantee that just because we see him, we would, automatically believe in him. But yes, it would have been wonderful to see what he looked like, to look deep into his eyes, or to imagine him looking deep into our eyes and maybe telling us something that we need to hear. So yes, it would have been wonderful. We actually, living today, we actually have a benefit because we can still hear the word of Christ, not through his own lips, but we hear his word read in the scriptures. We have the ability to meditate on his words. We have the ability to read his words again and again and to truly understand what they mean. And more than just seeing him physically, we have the ability to see what he was really like. In other words, by meditating on the scriptures, meditating on all that he said and did, we can truly understand what his personality was like, which we can't comprehend just by looking at someone. It's only when we get to know someone, when we spend time with them, when we see what their character is like, only then do we really get to know them. So this is a huge advantage that we have today, and it's something we should be grateful for. Because today is the feast of Saint Joachim and Saint Anne, notice the first reading from the book of Sirach. It praises ancestors and their generations. And it's interesting how in many, many cultures around the world, and something that's unfortunately being lost today, but in many cultures, including my own background from Hungary, whenever you spoke to an elder, if you were young and you spoke to someone who's older than you, or certainly older people, you would treat them with greater respect. The manner in which you spoke, the words that you used, signified greater respect and honor to the elderly, with the understanding that the elderly have lived out their life, they have experienced life, and so they have a certain wisdom that young people lack. And this is something that wasn't imposed on cultures. I think this is something that developed within cultures naturally, because often people would realize we need to go to the elderly, we need to go to those who have experience when we have questions about what to do or how to deal with some issue that may have arisen. So this respect for the elderly, and unfortunately that is being lost today, so that manner of speaking also is being lost. So not just the lack of respect, but even the manner of addressing the elderly, it's being lost in many cultures, which is very unfortunate. And traditionally when someone from our family, like say our parents or grandparents, passes away, we would normally grieve for them, we would visit their gravesite, we would offer masses for them. And this too is a custom that is being lost today. Young people, they don't just care anymore. Sure, they might attend the funeral, they like to give eulogies, and they feel that by doing a eulogy, they've honored their deceased loved one, and they're kind of done with whatever they need to do to honor their deceased loved one. No, we need to pray for them. We need to offer masses for them. We need to, try to gain an indulgence for them, because they may be in purgatory. No matter how good your parents were, well, they were still sinners. And so we don't know if they're in purgatory, how long they're going to be in purgatory, so we should definitely pray for them. And this is also a way of honoring them. And you see, the reality is that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and so on, they influenced us indirectly. In other words, my parents are the way they are because of the influence of their parents. Their parents are the way they are because of the influence of their parents, and so on and so on. Now, it's true that some people have bad parents, or sometimes they lack good parents, or any parent at all. That's true, and this is all the more reason we need to think of God as our Father, to think of Our Lady as our spiritual mother, or even St. Joseph as our spiritual father. And so those people who lack a good parent figure, they need to have greater devotion to these individuals. And we can also look at St. Joachim and St. Anne. We don't know anything about them except for the fact that they were the parents of Mary. And they obviously must have been very good because God chose them to become the parents of Mary. And so they must have had some influence on her in regards to how she grew up and what type of individual she was. It wasn't just the grace of God, but also the influence of those she encountered in her life, especially those that she was closest to, such as her parents. And these are the reasons why we should honor our parents, our grandparents, and so on and so on. In other words, our ancestors, because they have helped to make us to be who we are today. And if we're not the way that we should be, well, yeah, sometimes people point an accusatory finger at their parents or grandparents, but we also need to point that accusatory finger at ourselves. As I mentioned, we have the words of Christ. We can meditate on them. We are called to live them to the utmost. And we all have the ability to do that, whether we had a good upbringing or not.